Hello, and welcome back to the Poorly Ran Podcast, the only podcast on the internet. Well, this isn't a meeting that should be an email. We're off to a great start. You had to have been there. It might be a pre-show bit. I haven't decided yet. We'll see in about a week or so, like if it makes a pre-show bit or not. But anyways, I am joined by Nevena. She's joining us from where right now? Where are you exactly? I don't need the exact address. Just give me a city.
From a secret location in an Eastern European lab.
Of
Hello.
course, secret location over in Eastern Europe. That could be anywhere. I mean, I know geography, but some people are going to be like, Poland?
Close enough.
Close enough. You're just like, I'll give it. Sure, why not? Why not? Today's going to be another one of those one-on-one episodes. I mean, we haven't done a lot of them. The last one we did was for the Super Bowl with me and Mike. Got rudely interrupted by Hannah, but it's early enough in the day here in the US, so I don't think any of them are up. So, this is fine.
And I already have a beer because it's 5 o'clock here, so.
Oh, it's drinking time! I got my coffee still.
Then again, it's 2021. It's always drinking time, but still. Now it's socially acceptable to be drinking time.
Mm-hmm. By the way, this is coffee. This is not alcohol. It's not Irish coffee. Cheers. It's not Irish coffee. I'm sorry to disappoint y'all. But some of us still have to go to work today. I mean, your day's over. I mean, what is it over there? It's like 11:08 right now in the US, in the East Coast.
Oh, it's 5:08 in the afternoon.
See, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, and right now it's 5 o'clock in Eastern Europe. So, cheers.
Well, to be fair, indeed, in Eastern Europe, it's always 5 o'clock in terms of drinking times.
That's true. I mean, not to get off too much, but I did go to Ireland, so it was always 5 o'clock in Ireland somewhere.
Yeah, we are on the opposite ends of Europe, but we somehow worked out that schedule to be very efficient for surviving life.
Something about the EU, and it's like, yeah, it's 5 o'clock everywhere, and it's like, all right, cool. Anyways, let's get in.
Drink up.
The euro's going down in value again. You better start drinking up.
Might as well.
Let's finish the rest of the coffee. Anyways, today's show, we're just kind of going one-on-one with Nevena. We're talking about, her background and stuff, because she is what I would call a comedic scientist. Into scientific comedy. We're going to talk about stand-up in Europe and performing as a comedic scientist, or just performing over there in general, what that like, and then what kind of makes your brand of comedy unique, why take that approach. But we're going to start with your background. So I have it labeled out. Give us the who, what, and where. Tell us who you are, where you're from, what you do.
Well, again, hello everyone. So my name is Nevena Christozova, which is a name that no one, even my fellow countrymen, can properly pronounce most of the times. So that's already off to a good start when you want to be a comedian performing all over Europe when no one speaks your language. So I'm originally Bulgarian, and I've lived for my studies in Finland and here in Brussels in Belgium. And I'm a scientist originally because why not? And currently I work in a public-private research institute, which sounds very boring, but it gives me a lot of content on being funny, because scientists can be weirdly funny people if you know where to look.
If you know where to look. I mean, I did college and stuff, had to look up scientific papers. I'm like, I didn't find the humor in it, but maybe you did.
You weren't looking at the right papers.
Oh, that's right. It was that might be the issue. It's the issue of content in the papers. So,
to be fair, when I was reading scientific papers in college, most of the times I wanted to cry as well. But once I left college, suddenly everything became much more funny.
You get access to the good stuff once you leave college. You're like, oh, by the way, you can read these.
The shift of perspective is really epic.
Like, is it the shift that it's like, because it's college, they're like, we have to be prestigious and educational. And this one is like, yeah, I threw it together 5 minutes ago, and I may have left in some curse words.
Yeah, well, reading scientific papers in college is more like, I really need to get this result right. I need to get this, because I used to be an experimental scientist, right? I used to do molecular biology, so I was doing these super high-techy, fine results that if you have one drop more of something, then everything goes to hell. And yeah, when you don't have to think of it like that, but you get to actually read it for fun outside of college, it's much nicer to read.
It's like,
especially if you flunked out of college, because basically I didn't finish my PhD because I was like, you know what, this is not for me. Fuck it, I'm out of here. Mic drop, close the door.
See, you're like, I'm looking into it, I'm doing it, I'm not into it, get out.
I'm not doing it anymore.
You're like, I've had enough. I'm gonna go read the funnies now.
Yeah, the freedom that you get when you decide that enough is enough. It's just really something to experience.
That's interesting that you have that background, because like when you hear about comedians, especially over here, the average not famous comedian is like some like old white dude who's having a midlife crisis and talks shit about his wife. So you have a very, very more structured approach to all of this.
Yeah, I get to talk shit about myself in the past, about my colleagues ex-colleagues in the present. So you have to start with talking shit about yourself. You can't start talking shit about others before you can make fun of yourself.
That's a very good point. It's like, before you talk shit about others, talk shit about yourself, so it makes it better. So you don't get murdered by your colleagues.
Exactly.
That's the important thing, is to not get murdered by your colleagues. That is very important.
Yeah.
See, if you poke
or just don't work with them anymore.
You either have to make fun of yourself in front of your colleagues to establish dominance, or don't work with anybody.
Exactly.
It's a reverse psychology trick. If you just make fun
the
of
reverse psychology.
This man is 5 moves ahead in like 3D chess. But that's interesting that like your background took you through science. What got you into science in the first place? Or that particular field of study?
Yeah. I think I'm going to be very generic when I say that, but it was the X-Files. So and I'm not even joking. So I think I was like 9 or 10 when the X-Files came out prime time in Bulgaria. I think it must have been like 96, so a bit later than it originally came out in the US. And it was really like primetime Friday night, each week a new episode. And you see those episodes with like chimeras and the monsters of the week episodes and all these kind of things. Are like, no way this shit is real. So it's Friday night. The first thing I do Monday morning is run to the library or to the biology teacher in school and start asking these questions. Is this possible? Is this possible? Is that possible? First, they start looking at you weirdly. Then they realize why you're asking. And I'm like, no way, I need to know more about this. And then you end up in college with molecular biology major.
So one thing led to another. Next thing you know, molecular biology comes up as the field. That's interesting. You brought up 96, and I'm like, I was born in 96. Like,
oh, did you really have to say that?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Jesus.
I'm like 96. I'm like, I was born that year. I'm a bit younger.
Yeah. The thing that hurts is that I have like grown up, or well, not grown up, but self-aware person memories from that year.
Oh boy. Apparently that's a very touch and go year for a lot of people. they're like, you had to bring up 96, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I was born. What do you want me to do?
Well, good for you. The issue is for me.
What do you want me to do? Go back in time, push myself back in, wait till 97?
No, that's not going to make it any better.
It's not going to make it any better. It's not going to prevent what I've already seen in this lifetime so far.
True.
So
You had an eventful life for yourself.
yeah, economic crashes, pandemic. We've almost had a celebrity overthrow the U.S. government. I mean, it's been very exciting over here.
Yep.
We
It
kind of
has.
dialed it up to
I
11.
feel for you.
I know people were like,
11, you broke the knob.
there is no knob. The thing is
That was not 11.
what number is it now? Well, I couldn't tell you. I lost the knob. It's been a fun ride over here. That's got to be.
I'm glad that you see it as fun. Then again, whatever doesn't kill you.
I mean, whatever doesn't kill you, it doesn't make you stronger, but it just makes you more funny. The more trauma,
And
the
bitter.
Bitter. That's just how it is. I can't control what goes on in the country over here.
Yeah, to be honest, that's one thing that I quite like about my preferred comedians, not necessarily about myself, because I'm not my own preferred comedian, obviously. But I seem to enjoy the ones that have been really bitter through life, and then somehow you can channel this into being funny.
Oh, you can. There is ways to do that. That's not an issue for these people. It's like you just have it's like a bitter life, and then sometimes you can make the sweetest stuff out of it, or just make fun of everybody you see. There is no in between.
Pretty much, yeah.
Pretty much, but so I guess that's kind of the who, what, and where, unless you want to add something else to that part, to your background, so people have an idea.
Well, the thing is that the science I used to do, I've always had this idea that I will be doing this super science that helps humanity and the planet and whatnot. So I went into plant science thinking that I could engineer the plants of the future that would survive the climate change and whatnot, so we can still have crops to feed everyone and blah, 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 blah. And then in Europe, we ended up deciding not to allow that kind of plants in the first place here for agriculture. So it basically remained this passion project that you do just because you think it's fun, but you know that there's no future applicability wise for it.
Well,
so I'm
don't
like,
you hate that? Don't you hate that?
Yeah,
It's like
it's kind of painful.
We're here to change the world, and they're like, actually, we don't want you to do that. That's not allowed.
Scratch that.
Just kill it now. Kill it now before we get ahead of ourselves.
Pretty much. And then I realized also that there are people that are much better experimental scientists than I am. Truth be told, I did not have the patience to run 24-hour experiments for one experimental point. So I figured that I'm better off talking about science than actually doing it. So hence science communication, hence comedy.
So you're like a science commentator, like it's sports commentator, but now it's just science commentator. And it's like, it's like, all right, and Peter's going in with a vial right now. He's making his moves around it. He's dropping in 2 drops of sulfuric acid. Oh, he dropped in 3. Oh no. Well, that's a shame. Now he's going to start all over again.
Come back tomorrow for the same spot.
Welcome back to Science Center.
Yeah, we're exactly at the same step of the experiment like we were 3 days ago.
Nothing's happened, and they decided to order some Uber Eats. So they're hoping something changes today, but it's not likely going to happen. Anyways, today's sponsor.
We wish.
But
that's actually where the fun part in those scientific paper comes from, to know what they actually mean. Because when you say that, we left this experiment to run on room temperature for 12 hours, it doesn't mean that you tried it for 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, and you realize that 12 hours is the optimal time. Mm-hmm. You just realize that it's 5 o'clock on a Friday. And your colleague from the next lab was asking you for a beer. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to leave it on my bench. Go for a beer, get shit-faced. Saturday morning, you realize that you feel guilty about the deserted experiment and you go back and you see that there's actually a result. And you're like, I might as well put it room temperature for 12 hours in the publication.
Writing the publication, it's like, what did you do Friday night? I'm like, see, I let it incubate on my bench.
Exactly.
But in reality, I got shit-faced, came back, felt bad, and saw something happen.
Good enough.
It's like, this is science in the making. Leave me alone. I'm doing my work. Professor, why are you getting shit-faced right now? It's like, we need time to pass a lot more quickly. Don't you realize that? Whatever you do not give the plant any beer.
No, that would be waste.
That would be a waste. Unless something happens. Then it's science.
Well, I end up drinking the beer. That's what happens.
So, what did you conduct?
I would not carry out this experiment.
So, what happened during this experiment? Well, it consumed beer. I'm like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, well, it made me consume the beer.
Exactly. I tried them both.
I tried them both. They're very delicious, but that plant has not done a damn thing.
Has nothing to do with it.
That plant not involved in the incident. It may be a witness, but it
didn't even try.
It couldn't keep up. I gave it a beer. I drink its beer too. So let's get. Are we off track? I guess we are a little bit, but let's get into the.
Sorry.
It's fine. We go off track all the time. You wouldn't believe it. I mean, for as much as we go off track, you think I'd be putting down railroads somewhere. At this point, we could have had a transcontinental train system for the U.S. with how much I've gotten off track in my lifetime. Like, it would have been able to go anywhere.
Wait, hold on. You don't have that in real life?
No. We have a highway. We don't have a big train system. Trains are not... You would think for a country as big as
they're not a thing in the U.S.
We have trains. It's just there's not one that goes from New York to Los Angeles in less than a week. You would spend about a week or so getting off trains, getting on trains, getting off trains. You could do it. It's just it's very inconvenient.
You should totally do that. Like the American Express. So
it's not
the Orient Express, but in the U.S.
Well, as an American, I'm not getting too ahead of myself. We can't even get healthcare, so.
Yeah, priorities.
Priorities, healthcare, then fun shit. I saw that there's a company that's going to build a space hotel, have an operational by 2027, and I'm like, dude, I just want universal healthcare. Is that too much to ask for?
I was about to ask, will they have healthcare there?
Maybe, as long as the card doesn't
You're on your own.
Americans show up. They have a special port just for them, and it's like, if your card declines, you get shot out. But I think if you're going to spend time in a space hotel, I think you got the money. So I don't think healthcare is really an issue if you're going to spend time in a space hotel.
Or maybe they would do it for astronauts, that you will have to pass a physical exam, so they know that your chances of you crapping out in space are very slim.
They have to do the physical exam, and for the Americans, they need to do a background check for your finances and get a good credit score. Yeah, that's how you get the space hotel. But you can still
bring a gun.
Yes. I don't feel safe on the space hotel. What if ISIS gets up here and it's like, what are you talking? When did ISIS get a space program? What's going on over there? That would be the most American thing. It's like, you don't bring a passport, but you brought a gun to the airport instead. It's like, sir, you're going to space. What do you need it for? It's like extraterrestrials. And it's like, we don't have those. Anyways, way off track once again, but it's fine. I'm trying to build my railroad between.
I think it will be the theme of our show.
It's like off the rails, but not actual rails, metaphorical rails. Let's move on to what it's like to talk about stand up in Europe and kind of perform as a comedian over there. What's that like? Because I know over here in the U.S., obviously this is like pre-COVID stuff. Generally, like what the vibe is and all that. Because despite some governors thinking it's now the best time to get rid of the mask mandate over here, believe it or not, there's small bits of political commentary, and it's mostly because people are being idiots. So, like,
It's always something because people are being idiots.
I'm like, is it really political commentary if I'm just stating the obvious that this person's an idiot? Because it's a politician now, it's very political all of a sudden. But I know stand up in the U.S. and Europe differ quite a bit because like I know a lot of like stand up comedians who don't go over to Europe, or they go to Europe and they go to like London, Paris, and Amsterdam. It's always those same three places. Once in a while they go to Berlin, and that's it. They don't go anywhere else over there. They're like, oh yeah, we got the North America tour, which is like 2 cities in Canada. They think about Mexico, and the rest is US. And then they go to Europe and they hit up 3 places over there. It's either Ireland, United Kingdom, France, or Amsterdam. That's it. It's not even the rest of the Netherlands.
Yeah, usually the places that speak English.
That's a good start.
It kind of helps, to be honest. I haven't performed in that many places around Europe, to be fair. Well, okay, let me put a disclaimer. I'm not that big of a comedian in Europe. Believe it or not. I've performed in 3 countries in Europe.
That's more than
in my home country in Bulgaria. In Belgium, where I live now. And in Finland, where I used to live before. So kind of low-hanging fruit.
Honestly, that's way better than most other people.
Yeah, well, it's the equivalent of performing in New York, in LA, and somewhere down south, I guess. So the variation between the cultures is pretty much that extreme. So to be honest, that's one of the difficulties in performing in Europe. That, okay, to begin with, you're not sure that people would understand you at all. And even if they understand what you're saying, chances of them finding what you're saying funny are a whole different story. Because people in Europe laugh at very different things. So I had people in Bulgaria laughing their brains out at something, and people in Brussels at pretty much the same joke being like, huh?
It's one of those you had to be their jokes.
Exactly.
I would imagine the cultural barriers are a lot tougher over in Europe because everybody's their own independent country versus over here in the US where it's like, you know, they're states, but there's some generally same cultural concepts and ideas that you could play off of.
Yeah, I guess. But you have people like Eddie Izzard, for example, who not only can kind of play on the different cultures in his different shows, depending on the country he's visiting, he's performing at, but he can do it with the language as well. He goes off and just learns his own show in the local language. So I'm not there yet.
You're working there? You're thinking about it? It's on the to-do list?
It's on the to-do list for when I retire.
There you go. There you go.
So you have few people that can do that almost seamlessly or effortlessly, rather. I'm not one of them. So I try to play it safe. And to be fair, when you say that you're a science stand-up comedian, you have kind of a niche audience. And for me, that's the easy part, because scientists are rarely living where they're from. So there's so much moving around as a scientist that it makes it a bit easier. Is this fluid mass of people with kind of like generalized nerd culture that it makes it a bit easier to make them laugh, irrelevant of their ethnic or racial origin and the culture that comes along with that.
That's a good point. It's like you have like the best gig to just move around to, move to a new place, start doing stand-up comedy at night. It's like scientist by day, comedian by night.
Pretty much, yeah.
But like the whole language thing and the cultural thing in Europe, definitely, it sounds like it plays a bigger role in how you take an approach to like a set or whatever, versus over here. Because like, unless I'm doing like specific jokes about like politics or religion and stuff like that, most of the other jokes are completely fine.
Yeah, well, there's a bunch of stuff that I can only do in Bulgarian because it's only ever funny if I do it in Bulgarian. And I'm not even talking about wordplay. I'm talking about things that just don't make sense, even if you find the right expression in English. Mm-hmm. So I do have certain things that I wish one day we have those chips in our brains that effortlessly translate everything for us so I can do it in whatever language and everyone finds it funny. But I think we need a couple of years away still from that.
You're a couple years away? Oh man.
Well, Elon Musk said he's working on it, so my hopes are high.
What he says, so that's the thing. I mean, he's clearly bored. that's the thing with Elon Musk. He's clearly bored because he's just doing whatever he wants at this point. Like he's trying to make Dogecoin like the newest currency that everybody has to use. He's doing.
I choose to hope.
He's doing whatever he wants right now, like anything he wants. He's just he could be Tony Stark, he could be Iron Man or Batman, but no, he chooses to just go dick around. He's like, oh, let me be a memester. It's like, dude, you're richer than most of us. Go do something useful. We know you're capable. Go do something. Bring me a Tesla dealership. I want one in my town right now. Because the only ways you could buy Teslas is like you have to buy it from the plant itself, which is actually pretty smart because there's no middleman. But the issue is I have to go and buy a Tesla. The first issue is I have to have money to buy a Tesla.
Well, yeah. I think we're on the same grounds here.
Number one issue.
The main issue.
It's not even the one I'm worried about the most. Teslas are becoming more affordable over here, which is like good because, you know, the Tesla vehicles tend to rank pretty high in all their testing and safety and like features and stuff like that. They're becoming way more affordable. There's going to be a point where it's like, I'm going to go on Craigslist one year when I'm like 10, 20 years and there's going to be a used Tesla for sale for like $5,000. And then
or a tuned one.
I'll have a kid and they'll be like, can I buy this as a used car? I'm like, no, you got to suffer. I get the Tesla. You gotta suffer. It's like you have to drive a shitmobile.
You drive the SUV.
You have to drive a shitmobile for the first 3 years of your license. Then we'll talk. When you're crashed on the side of the road because your car finally died out, then we'll talk. That's how it goes. That's what happened to me. But anyway, but I guess the cultural thing and the language thing, you know, because like you mentioned, Ed, there's some jokes you can do in Bulgaria that people will get and laugh their asses off. And then there's a joke you'll do, the same joke in Belgium, and people are like, huh, that's funny.
Yeah, to be honest, I've been living abroad for like 10 years now. So oftentimes I get to think of jokes more in English that would never work in Bulgarian. So I was like, oh, damn it. I'm becoming one of those people that lives abroad for a while and was like, how was that in Bulgarian? I hate it so much. And I'm becoming one of those people.
Oh,
it's really, really sad.
That's unfortunate. Maybe take a trip home, question mark.
I wish I could. I can't.
No, I mean, not right now. I'm not saying leave, go right now, because, you know.
Yeah.
There's this thing called COVID going around. I'm not sure if that'd be the greatest idea.
Yeah. Oh, you can try.
You are more welcome to try, but... I mean, how are the travel restrictions over there? Because it sounds like everything's shut down still.
Yeah, well, I actually was one of the crazy people that traveled for Christmas because I'm a single child and I'm like, I am not leaving my parents all alone for Christmas. They're just gonna die. So I did go home for Christmas. I spent a week at home. I went out twice, once to get food from the store, and the second time to go to the airport to fly back.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, since then, currently at least leisure travel is not a thing. We're kind of hoping that at least within Europe they would allow doing it. But even if they allow it, like, where do you go? Surely I'm not gonna stay with a bunch of people in a hotel in Spain.
No, you're not gonna go to Barcelona and party over there.
No, definitely not.
I mean, not the smartest move. It'd be fun, but it would not be the smartest move.
No. But at this point, so my expectations of life had gotten so low. At this point, I would be happiest if they opened the cafes because it's kind of warming up. So I kind of want to have a coffee outside on a table at a coffee shop and just look at people.
You want to people watch?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that too. I miss people watching because now if you stare at people, they're like, well, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, I just want to get to where you're standing right now. I need to grab toothpaste. Leave me alone.
And I don't even like people. Like I'm sort of an introvert, so I'm perfectly happy being at home and working home office. But if I start missing seeing people around me, then you know that it's gone for too long.
It's like, this thing is acting up. I mean, you know, like, I go out and work and stuff. I go to the grocery store, but it's not the same as, like, I'd like to go see my friends. But, you know, hopefully with this vaccination stuff that the ball gets kind of rolling. I mean, our President Joe Biden, you know, not the Cheeto, thank goodness.
How good does it feel to say that?
You know, honestly, since
At least that it's a different name.
Okay, so like this, my phone it's been the quietest it's been in like years, cause I'm not. The way to put it is like I'm not missing anything. I don't have to scroll through Twitter and like see what the hell. It's like Donald Trump trending, and I'm like, son of a bitch.
Not again.
I think John Mulaney has the best metaphor about it. It's like you let a horse into the hospital, and you get updates about that horse in the hospital all the time. And I'm like, that's the only way to describe it. It's the only thing that makes sense about the Trump presidency. It's like, it doesn't always do bad stuff, but sometimes it's just weird. And like the reference, the specific one he made is like, the horse used the elevator. It's like, the horse used the elevator. I love John Mulaney. I mean, last year he went into rehab.
I think it's a bit unfair to the horse, though.
Well, yeah, I don't think it'd be fair to horses comparing them to Donald Trump. I don't think that'd be fair. Horses are magnificent creatures, so big, beautiful, strong, and not maleficent, but magnificent creatures. I got him mixed up with the Disney villain. Trump is
not pretty much everything that he isn't.
Trump is not any of those things. I mean, I don't know what your coverage of the U.S. was over there, but basically it was like we let the horse with the nuke codes. We'll see what happens. We'll let you know in 4 years, and the response was, get him out of here.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. So because I work, hence exist in English, I don't live in the US, and yet 90% of my news coverage and stories and every content I consume online still comes from there. So I'm like, well, it's not much better that he's not my president since I get exposed to his shit all the time anyways.
It's like, well, damn, you might as well be the president here too. All I hear is about what you're doing.
Oh, we have those as well.
I've heard of some of those. I know Boris Johnson is the most prominent example over there, but you know,
it's really becoming a thing. Yeah, idiots being leaders of alt-right or anything closely related to that parties is really becoming a trend all over. And in Europe, you have them pretty much in every country, and in every country they're growing in popularity, so you get to hear and see them more. So it's not that much better here.
It's like
everyone who was imagining it is like, oh, it's so much easier in Europe. It's really not.
You see the writing on the wall. It's like, guys, you know what happened over there? In the United
Oh, no, no.
States, it's
It will be too
back here.
mainstream if we learn from your mistakes, guys. We have to make them several times ourselves
Then like,
to see what it's really like.
haven't you guys made several of those mistakes and now they're coming back again? It's like, clearly somebody did not learn.
Yeah. But coming back to languages, that's the only saving grace I have. Because half of the time, more than half of the time, at least I don't understand those people, well, those idiots talking, because they would speak in a language that I have no idea what they're saying.
You're just like,
I know you're being stupid right now because like visual cues, but I'm happy that I don't understand what you're
Look,
saying.
stupid is a universal language. It does not matter.
Exactly.
Just stupid is as stupid does. I mean, you see it and you're like, oh my god, what a moron.
Yep.
But we got off on a political rant. But it's just interesting because like a lot of the in terms of comedy, so far, you know, people, that's all what people did for the last 4 years is make fun of Trump. And then now people are like, oh, what are you going to do about Trump? And I'm like, are you kidding me? He hasn't gone anywhere. We're still going after him.
Yep.
It's like, are we going to go after Biden the same way? Well, we're going to give him a little bit of a break, but come June, anything's off the table. I mean, you know, he just got in there.
Let him get to speed with the stupid stuff.
Let him get to speed, then throw a bunch of shit at him. I mean, the other guy was just asking for it the whole way there, and it's like, well, fine, if you insist. But, you know, there was there was a dominant thing where it's like, all of a sudden comedians became much more political during the Trump administration, and that's something that's like, you know, now they're kind of, some of these comedians who rose because of the Trump jokes, they now have an identity crisis. It's like, all right, so the main source of my material is now out of office. It doesn't make sense for me to keep harping on him. Now I gotta figure out how to actually write jokes.
Yeah. But that's why science comedy is timeless. Because scientists would always end up doing stupid shit, irrelevant of politics.
Science
or weird, not necessarily stupid.
It's like, science does not care about your feelings or your politics. We're going to do dumb stuff.
Exactly. So we can laugh about it.
That's the best thing to do about it. So I'm guessing we'll move on to this last part. Why choose science comedy? Or be a comedic scientist? Why take this approach? You know, what's kind of the pros and cons of all of this?
Yeah. Well, I was mentioning earlier that basically I realized that there are better people to do science than I do, and I can talk about the science they do. So originally I started with science communication, so trying to give exposure to science, to research it, for people to know what their tax money is going for when it's going for research. Because it's important.
That is
and
important.
It can be very interesting.
I'm very disappointed when I hear what my tax money is going towards. I'm like, and it's like the NYPD just bought like this like robotic dog basically to go patrol the street, and it's like taxpayer money. It's like $73 million, and I'm like, and you spend it on a whole fleet of robots? That's not
but it would be much more interesting to know what's the science that went into making that dog, no?
I guess it would be more interesting if it wasn't. See, you know, the police are a very sore subject over here. So the fact that the NYPD is like, we got robotic dogs now, it's like Black Mirror is calling. You got a cease and desist letter for stealing their ideas.
Yeah.
I mean, I do see some of the funding that goes into science and stuff, and like, I love following NASA and all their stuff. I mean, that's one of my favorite things, where they're like, oh, we're trying to make a colony on the moon, so here's what we're doing with our funding and our research. And I'm like, that's cool. I want that stuff.
Yep. Well, that's the thing, because astronomers, and space scientists get the easy job. So it's always fascinating, and it's always been fascinating for people to talk about space and planets and stars and whatnot. So it's kind of a bit easier for them to make the public understand why it takes so much money and why is it important. It's much less obvious to people why I spend, for example, €1 million researching a single protein in a single plant, that it's not even a plant that is edible, with the very far prospect of making an edible plant more resistant to drought.
Well, that's interesting too. I like to hear how my crops are going to stay alive with all this climate change. I'm like, hey, we're screwing this up. You either got to make sure we're ready or you got to fix it. So I
Yeah, well,
always.
that's the thing. Plants are not sexy. So it might be interesting to know how you're going to be able to feed yourself in 20 years with the current progression of climate change. But the moment you start talking about science and plants, people completely switch off immediately. So it's like, okay, we have to do that in a different way.
It's like, I don't want to know about any dumb plants. It's like, sir, this is corn. If you don't have it, you're going to starve. Well, I don't want to hear about no corn or anything. I don't want to know about that. It's all liberal conspiracy. See, everybody over here makes it about strictly politics. So, like anything, it's like, hey, we need more money for the school. It's like, why? So you can spread the liberal conspiracy. I got the head movement in too. They do it like this. Why? So you can spread the liberal conspiracy. It's always politics over here. I'm like, y'all need to calm down. Like, I want funding to go to school so like children do not starve. I mean, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, but it is, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, but it always ends up being about politics because this is how in our parts of the world money are distributed for the most part based on political agendas, ideas, or whatever you want to you want to call it. So if people like me who can kind of be funny sometimes and know about the science don't talk about it, you would only get, well, either no one will talk about it, or even worse, you would end up only the pseudoscientists talking about it and filling people's heads with complete crap and freaking them out only that, oh my god, they're making plants that would eat us alive at night, glowing in the dark and stuff like that.
I don't know. That sounds like a cool apocalypse, one we haven't touched before.
It could be.
Could be.
Haven't lived through a plague. It could be a different take on how the world ends.
It's like, because people are like, how's the world gonna end? And it looks like we're just gonna blow each other up. But if you bring in plants that eat people that also glow in the dark, that would be a lot more interesting.
So yeah, that's how I ended up basically in science communication, trying to make science more accessible or to help scientists being less boring when they talk to quote unquote normal people. And to show the normal people that scientists too are actually normal people. We do live a normal life. We have families and friends that we care about. We have jobs, even though the jobs are a bit more on the weirder side.
Yeah, I would go
And
weirder. Unconventional, if you will.
unconventional. I like your word better.
I
Conventional
work in
space.
communication too, so I understand that words are like very important how you pick them out.
And yeah, especially in the past decade, maybe with the rise of stand-up comedians, at least here in Europe, there has been definitely a huge boom in interest in stand-up comedy. And with the funny way of introducing news and information from the US with the late shows and stuff, it became very, very obvious, and there's actually research on this, that if you make people laugh while you try to convey some sort of useful information, chances are that they would remember it much better and it would actually form like a positive connection to that information. So it's already one step closer for people understanding why the hell science is important for them, even if they don't do it themselves.
It's like if we make them laugh, they tend to remember better.
Yep.
So
It's all about mind control.
that's the liberal conspiracy right there.
Can we cut that one out? I gave out my secret.
If mind control, you mean, hey, we need to make stuff so we can survive the next 20 years.
Yeah, because if you say it like this, it's not convincing enough for some reason. So you gotta throw in some laughter.
It's like, whoa, we're gonna be, well, if we're going down, at least we'll have some fun.
Awesome.
That's the way to do it. But, it seems like it seems like it's a different route and how to approach things. It's like, you go to these clubs or you go to these venues and you do the comedic scientific stand up and stuff like that. Has that really changed any people's minds?
Well, interestingly enough, I don't know if it has changed minds, but surely it has raised more interest
Well, yeah,
than
like
otherwise.
or
Because yeah,
yeah.
I do get people afterwards coming after a gig, for example, while we're having a drink at a bar or something, to just ask more stuff. And sometimes they're like, "Is that really?" Because oftentimes I talk about those funny papers that I told you about. They're like, "Is that really a real scientific paper?" I'm like, "Oh yes, I can give you the citation, and you can read it yourself."
I'll tell you where
It
to
has
find
pictures
it.
too.
Pictures make it easier to read. Picture books are my favorite type of books
Yeah,
right now.
absolutely.
Because I
So,
think I remember watching one of your clips you sent me. It was the one about the penguin poop, I think.
oh yes, that's old but gold.
It's old but gold. It's like, we funded all this research to find out how penguins poop.
How far and how strongly?
How strong? It's like, what are they eating? Why does it smell like asparagus? I mean, we gotta answer these questions. Why?
Yeah.
Because we got the money, that's why. You ever just
But
see
we had to find a project for this poor lowly grad student to do to occupy them with something.
It's like, it seems like you just give people busy work. It's like, yeah, find out why penguins poop the way they do. It's like, what do you mean? It's like, yeah, you heard me. Go do it. You just that's gotta be funny. You just send you send the lowly the grad student and you're like, oh, it's this person again. It's like, what do we do this time? And it's like, just send them to Antarctica for what? I don't know, make it up. But at least there's science there.
Or even worse, let them make it up. Then you end up really with some interesting stuff.
It's like, all right, don't give them too much leeway. Just give them enough. Figure out why Europe doesn't have any cactuses. There you go. Figure that out. But, you know.
One of my still favorite articles of those is a student that had to study how the proteins in ice cream change when the ice cream melts. I absolutely love that. I wish I was part of this research because you know in research that you have to have multiple repetitions for each time point to make sure that you didn't catch like a flunk in the results or something like this.
Yeah.
Which means that they were having so much ice cream. Because of course you're not going to throw away the ice cream afterwards. I mean, you take your sample and then you just eat the damn ice cream.
So the plant ate the ice cream, but didn't drink the beer. It's very interesting to see how this goes. There's some fun ones too. There's always like, I feel like it's always like a university in Florida that does all like the sex surveys or like the sex studies and stuff like that. That's what happens over here. They always do the sex ones over in Florida. And I'm like, why Florida? But then I'm like, why not Florida? It makes sense.
You really have to ask the question, why Florida?
It's like, why Florida? And then I'm like, idiot, why not? I have to catch myself once in a while because I'll see like a study. Most of the sex ones, like sex-related ones, come out of Florida, like University of Florida, Florida State University, or like University of Central Florida, or University of Miami, Florida. You know, like they have all they have the fun ones, and then once in a while I get one from California. It's like, hey guys, climate change. I'm like, shut up! I'm reading this one from Florida.
I'm gonna send you a paper about the difference in wages that strippers make depending on the time of month they're working in. So depending on their menstrual cycle, turns out that they make the most money when they're ovulating and the least money when they're having their menstruation. Surprised, the authorship list of this paper, all male. I wonder how they found it.
That's not too
well.
hard.
They were interviewing the strippers, but yeah.
All male. They're all male, and it's like, I don't.
100% all men.
I don't think that's by accident. I just think there's a lot of men over here in this particular part of the woods.
Also, you have to give them credit, actually, because to write a proposal for such a research, to get money from a university to fund that. So not only that you spend your time in strip clubs talking to strippers, spending the whole night, so you actually ask them in the end how much they made, But you get the university to pay for that. I mean, that's a skill to revel in.
It's a very interesting like economic sociology type research, and I bet it was from you're gonna have to send me it because it sounds like something out of Florida.
I don't remember anymore. It is definitely an American university, but I don't remember which one anymore.
Only an American university would fund something like that, but like. Not all of them. Like, you're not going to see an Ivy League school like Harvard fund something like that. But maybe something a little more fun, like
maybe
University of Florida. It's like, what? Economic? What? I heard strippers. Go ahead. Here's the money. Take the grant. Go. Bring pictures.
The funny part is that if there was one woman in this research team, she could have told them all these things that had she been asked to dance at a pole while she's cramping and bleeding and being miserable as fuck, she would not be so invested in her work as compared to any other time of the month.
Right.
But then they wouldn't have to go and do the research.
You could have saved the university a lot of money, but, you know, we like to spend money, so...
Yeah, well, that's actually some of the critique that I get sometimes, like, oh, why are you making fun of scientists? Our work is already hard enough. And I'm like, well, that's another point. I mean, we as scientists have to kind of learn to think properly about the research we do, especially in times like today, when there's less and less funds to do the research. Maybe we should kind of reconsider the things that are worth doing. Or at least on public money.
Right.
If you're paying out of your own pocket, you can do all the research you want. I don't care.
Exactly. And that's the thing, too. So you can kind of do whatever you want when you fund it yourself. I know sometimes universities will just throw out a research. Like, they'll just give the money because they're trying to close out the budget so they can get more money. And they're like, we got like 50 grand left. Research strippers. There we go.
Exactly. Oh, guys, we have these $20,000 that we have left over. If we don't spend them until December 12th, we're going to get less money next year, which is a whole different issue, but yeah.
They're just like spend.
Can you give me those $12,000 in ones, please?
I need $12,000, sure, in once. Okay, you know what? Whatever balances the budget. But
it's a follow-up study.
That's all the time we got. Nevena, thanks so much for coming on. Anything you want to plug? Projects?
Thank you for having me. Well,
media?
if I can do shameless self-promotion for the Science Communication podcast that I run, it's a Scicomm_JC on Twitter, and you can find the episodes there if you want to learn to do science communication. We're your spot.
There you go. We'll get the link for that. We'll put it in our show notes. But thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. And with that being said, this episode's over. We're gonna go research strippers, I guess. So
yes,
it's called science.
And ice cream.
And ice cream. You can't go wrong. But anyways, thanks so much. Say bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
That was funny right at the end. I'm like stripper. Like, who's research? You're gonna have to send me that so I can put it in the show notes and call it context.
I'm sending you that link. Yeah. It's really good.
Discord.